All right, well, good morning, and we'll call the September 10th meeting of the Education Committee to order. So welcome. We do have a quorum. It takes 4 of us present, so we have well over a quorum, so we'll call to order. Review of on-site packet.
Chair, there is no.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't see her. Okay. Thank you. Additions or revisions to the agenda? Not hearing any, we'll have the agenda as it's written. And so announcements. So I want to take just a minute to recognize Amy Height. Amy's been on this committee for several years, 4 years. I was going to say it's been, I don't know if we count anymore, you know, after a certain point we stopped counting. But anyway, we really appreciate what you've done. We have a certificate of recognition, Amy. I anticipate that you'll probably be continuing on this committee. We are really glad to welcome you to the full board. This will be your first board meeting, and congratulations on your appointment. But we do have a certificate to recognize your first 4 years on this committee, but I anticipate there will be several more. So thank you, Amy. Okay. Any other announcements? No, Carol? Okay. Let's look at our minutes from June 11th. They start on page 4 of your packet.
Madam President, I move to approve the June 11th, 2024 Education Committee minutes as written.
I have a motion. Thanks, Michelle. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries. So now, forgive us, what your update, it is in your packet.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. I will say there's been quite a bit of movement in this quarter, and I think in anticipation of getting ready for the school year, but we've had several changes. A couple have been to the schools and their presidents. A few have been for the nursing program. And so I just wanted to kind of bring your attention to North Central Kansas Technical College has announced an official name change. They are becoming part of the Fort Hays system. There will be a partnership there. So their new name is Fort Hays Tech, North Central. So we'll still have to designate between the Beloit and Hays campus, which we have always done, but they are becoming part of that system. So we hope good things for them, and with that move and what that means for them in terms of the support of their programs. Fort Scott Community College has a new interim president of the college. That was effective May 24th. Sarah Sutton is their new interim. And then also, looking for the other one there. Oh, Barton County, or Barton Community College also has a new college president, beginning July 1. Dr. Marcus Garstecki is taking over that with the retirement of Dr. Heilman, who's been there for quite a while. In terms of the nursing programs, Dodge City Community College has a new nursing director, Jennifer Licks. She got to meet her yesterday. Michelle Haley, who is on our committee, was the director and has moved up to the vice president for academic affairs for the college. She will keep the nursing program under her, so that will be great. Jennifer's got a great mentor. Emporia State had a director change with the retirement of Mary Mitsui. Carrie Hess took over in effective June 9th. And Flint Hills, so both in Emporia, Flint Hills College, Julie Heitman, she was an interim director there for a while and has now come back to take that position again and try to keep that program up and running. And then, the School of Nursing, Dr. Teal retired. We had the change in the dean for all of nursing, and Dr. Gene Giddens took that spot, but, with the retirement of Dr. Teal, who was kind of the next step down, they have appointed 2 new deans, in the School of Nursing. Dr. Nelda Godfrey is going to be the Associate Dean of the undergraduate programs, and Jill Peltzer was named the Associate Dean for graduate programs. So they have a new team in place. And then also Donnelly College announced a new interim director of nursing, Dr. Russell Robinson, and that was effective August 12th. So those are the primary changes. I think in terms of what else is in the, there are a couple things I want to bring to your attention. Just in interest, our petitions, we currently have 21 active petitioners. It's a little bit more than we've had in the last couple of months, but we've also had 5 complete this year, or 7 complete just this year, and 5 have passed the NCLEX. So that's kind of, for me, a new record in terms of what we've seen since I've been here. So I'm excited about that. I don't know. We've had quite a few just lately who are newer petitioners, so they're just past their 2-year mark. So that's helpful too, but really trying to get them involved in their process, and it seems like it's helping. And I don't know if the new NCLEX, the style is helping them in the way that they're studying is effective in taking it. So that's great too. A reminder, in June, we decided on a new topic for Caspian scholarships. Then we ran into a little roadblock because our newsletter vendor is being sold. And so there's some discussion about whether that can continue. At this point in time, we don't think that it can, but there have been a couple things that have come up, so we're going to continue to talk about it. But at this point in time, we don't anticipate a scholarship for this year unless something changes drastically in the next, couple of weeks. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. NCLEX conference is Thursday this week. They have gone to a completely virtual format, and so it's been available to a lot more people, and I think that's great. They usually have a really good conference. It's just one day. So I think that is all I will say, unless anyone has questions about what's in the report.
Thank you very much, Janelle. Okay, let's look at our consent agenda. On page 16 and 17, you have the upcoming site visits that Janelle's put the schedule together for you. Page 18 is per petitions for permission to test. And page 19 and 21 are those regulations that we reviewed last time. KAR 60-5-102, KAR 60-5-103, and KAR 60-6-101. If everybody's comfortable, we'll take that group motion. If there's any item you'd like to pull out and discuss, we certainly can do that.
I move to approve the consent item agenda, which includes a 2024-2025 site visit schedule, the petition summary 5/12/24 through 8/12/24, C draft regulation review approval, KAR 60-5-102, 60-5-103, and 60-6-101.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
Thanks, Patty. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. We have a site visit report, and I think just combine that a little bit with our first new business. We have a major curriculum change, but let's talk about the site visit first. You've got the page 22, I believe, is where it starts on the site visit. Then you've got the curriculum change on page 38, but those all come from Mid-America College of Health Sciences. So,
And I'm noticing just an error on the first page. We did the visit in July. Both dates say November. We did the last visit in November, but we did do this. It was an updated visit in July, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure how we all overlooked it, but I will get that correction.
tell us about the site visit. How did that go?
Yes, we actually, this was a follow-up that the board had requested after our visit in November and some other things that had occurred. So We had 3 site visitors, myself, Carol Moreland and Debbie Pyle, all did that visit. And we just did basically a re-review after looking at some of the recommendations from last time. We really concentrated on that. A lot of work had been done to pull that together. They do have a new director, so very well put together. We reviewed all of the things that we had questions about. And I think if you look to the, we have the strengths. And I just want to, like I said, bring attention to the fact that there's a lot of flexibility in that program. The students are really like that. And I just, sorry, I want to get my eyes around it a little bit. They were very clear about their, what they liked about the options for attending class. If you recall, this program has 3 cohorts, basically. So there are as a weekend option, there's an evening option and day option. So for them, that's a very flexible thing. It can be a little harder to keep track of all the schedules, but we're working on that too. We saw some things we thought would be an opportunity to help clarify how those schedules work, how the simulation, how direct care, which is most of their curriculum anyway, but they have all those parts. So we were able to see that and put that together very well. I will say, I think you can read what's there, but we felt like that there was a lot of work done, and I'm going to go just to the recommendations piece. So remembering that the opportunities are just things that we saw that might be helpful for the program, but the recommendations still pertain to the regulation. So there it is. Sorry. So what I will say about the recommendations, we did find a couple of issues, but I've already gotten a response on several of them. So as you can see, we talked about the KSB and required documents. Again, new director too. They're just getting some updates, getting some clarity on what that is. And they've already sent how they're going to plan to do that process to get all that together. The clinical schedules were revised and a template submitted. I think I made some comments and sent them back but it was a great update. Faculty meeting minutes, they submitted a new template. I think that will really help in how they're getting from their faculty discussions to their program evaluation. We still are looking at the NCLEX pass rates are low. And so they've had a plan. They put a plan when we asked them to after our visit in November. And so they'll continue to work on that and possibly look at that, updating that to the board every 6 months. We did talk about the need for an advisory committee. They have one that has been, I think they have people who serve on an advisory, but none of them are particularly for the PN. Most of them can speak to all of the other programs that they've had for a while. And so we talked about getting that advisory together specifically for their PN program, and that they've already got a draft agenda for and some new people to add to that committee. The program evaluation does need some further clarification. We talked about that. So that's the one thing, and they need a little time to get that together, and that's understandable. And so the final recommendation is up to you all. This was just after our visit, and the recommendation that the new cohorts, admission of new cohorts at their current approval level, which is a max of 20 in each of the cohorts, with recommendations to continue to address obviously the recommendations, and then move to conditional approval status as part of the full process, mostly because of the pass rates. With the revisit in 2 to 3 years was suggestion, but that's up to you all and how you. I think it takes a little time. We'll see new pass rates in March. So, there could be some more data at that point in time, but that was what we came up with for you all to consider. And if you have questions, we do have our group here, and Debbie and Caroline are also here as well.
I think there's been some good work done. So, people comments or questions from you?
So I do have a question. So 2 to 3 years seems a bit out there to leave them on conditional approval that long. If they've got 3 cohorts of 20, and I believe it's short, Gina, it's a short program,
9 months.
9 months. So that's leaving them out there for quite a bit. Even if we're gonna, if we want to wait past this March because it's already in effect and they're going, so. I would think I would feel more comfortable on the 2-year as the max. Just so that they've got that time to correct, but not stay on conditional approval that long.
Madam Chair, I support that.
So we look at a follow-up site visit to be done in 2 years, within 2 years.
And also just as a sidebar from others we've had on conditional because of rates too. Once those pass rates come out, there could be a request to have it brought back to the committee in terms of the conditional approval piece without doing a follow-up visit, if you're satisfied with that. But the other thing too is we won't see rates for the new cohorts too. I mean, we'll see them for the last one, which is the good piece, because there's not going to be a lot of a break. There'll still be a chance to have a 9-month program, but by next fall. So it may take,
Spring of
yeah,
26, yeah.
by spring of 26 when those next rates come out too. So I agree that there, I mean, not that I have to agree, but just to let you know, we've done that before with other programs. So I'll leave that to the information.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move to accept the site visit report with recommendation for conditional approval of Mid-America College of Health Science PN program and repeat follow-up in the spring of 2026.
Thank you, Amy. Do you have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. So now we'll go on to our major curriculum change. We'll let you come up and speak to that. So this is on page 38. Is where the new transition fall within the portion. So tell us about the curriculum change that you're looking for.
My name is Professor Andrew. So on request for curriculum change, we are looking at pharmacology, which is currently on 2 credit to move it to 4. And this is to enable us to have more students outcome in testing and a lot of calculation. The goal actually is to have 100% in calculation grade before we get into clinical. Then another one is on IV therapy. It was on module 4. We want to move it to 2 to enable a long span of time for the students to have a hands-on while going into clinical, not towards the end of the program. Then another one is mental health from 2 credit to 3 credit hours, still for the same outcome for more students learning and understanding the ethics and all that aspect of the course. Then the other one is leadership, also to give them more time to have more learning on that aspect from 2 credits to 3 credits.
That's a lot of credit hours.
From 43 to 48. Yes.
In the short time span that you're going to be doing this, adding that additional credit hour load, is that going to be feasible for the students?
Yes, it's still going to be within the 9 months of the program. We already have it factored into the plan.
Any questions?
I do. I'm looking here again at your course descriptions. And I'm wondering, what have you added in addition to the time, like the course credits increasing? Have you added any online simulation, any classroom simulation?
Yes, ma'am. We are transitioning from Elsevier to Lippincott currently. And with Lippincott, we have so many more resources and we're working with them weekly to increase each one of these, especially pharmacology, to get more practice into DCM and different aspects so that we have the best student outcome we can.
So maybe more of the simulation type case study?
Yes, case
Are you
study,
off-
clinical judgment.
Are you offering any standardized testing with pharmacology where the students will have to have timed test? with
Yes,
their
that's
pharm
built
test?
into their program, the Lippincott
Okay.
program. After after each module, each subject matter, but pharmacology and drug count, we asked to emphasize on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Full semester.
It is.
It's a lot of credit.
I'm thinking of the words Gina did in class. So I think the question that I have is, with the pass rates being already what they were, 43 credit hours for the 9 months, raising this by 5 credit hours, do you think the change in the publisher you use will help them, or will make that, easier is not the word, but make that attainable and have them still pass?
Honestly, I think it's more attainable because of the resources that they offer. And it's so student-centered and based on clinical judgment and critical thinking early from day one, with the activities focusing more on the student, giving them so many resources that if they have to remediate, they do it right then. There's just so many resources that weren't in Elsevier.
So with all of those resources, is that now going to become part of class and not outside of class as student resources when they feel like they're lacking in something and they can go there? Because
Combination. It's a combination. How it's built in is if they do like a laundry list. So if it's something they don't know, they put it down. So some of it will be in school class and we can look in how they're set up. If they're struggling in an area, then we can focus on that. If they're doing well in that area, we can focus on that. So they have in-school resources and out resources. So if a student, say there's only 1 or 2 students struggling, we can assign and lead them to resources to help that individual student so that the whole class doesn't have to be trained. But if the whole class is, then we can focus on that area that's needed.
So you can see their work.
Yes,
So like if they're doing something at home, you guys have access to see if they're still struggling
how much time they
and
spend.
and need
Yes, if
something
it's,
done.
if it's strong or weak or opportunities.
You have additional objectives that you're trying to achieve?
The objectives are the same to have better student outcomes, but as we know, calculations, pharmacology is just difficult most of the time when you're first starting out in nursing. So that is the reason why I want to emphasize on that. So we have the best, safe, competent nurse when they come out.
Was there an increased cost to the student with this?
No,
No. So it's not a per credit hour charge?
no, it's
Like a
one
bundle
set.
type
Yes, it's
charge.
one set for the 9-month program.
feels like a really heavy semester. Thinking about just sent my kid off to college for his first semester and that, wow, that's a big load. And I think that's, you know, I think there's some really good aspects to it. I think you're not increasing the objectives necessarily. You're just trying to increase the support that you're giving them and the time, it sounds like, without doing the dollars. So I think it'll be interesting to see the outcomes, but it does worry me with that, the number of credit hours.
So Gina, have you guys looked at maybe trying it with the new publisher before increasing their credit hours, if there's stuff that they can be doing on their own?
The Living Card that we are currently looking at has a lot of resources that will support all this, you know, pretty much detailed to supporting all this.
And our consultant with Lippincott, we explained why we were doing it, what we were proposing to the board to increase as many opportunities for our students to have the best possible outcome possible.
So it kind of sounds to me like some of your students may be able to meet the competencies, but you're increasing enrichment remediation for the students who aren't.
Yes.
But they're all getting the increased credit hour requirements.
Yes.
So not
The
all
program.
students are gonna need all of those resources from Lippincott if they're competent the first time they try.
Yes, if they're confident, we're still gonna ask them to review it because it doesn't hurt to keep reviewing. So it'll still be, but for the students that are struggling, they have those extra resources built in. So we're still gonna recommend them to strengthen, because nobody's perfect to start with, especially a novice person. But you're correct, there is built in. So if you are struggling, it's more, but if you're meeting it, then it becomes a recommendation that we like, but we can recommend those that are struggling to follow up because we can see what there's the areas that they're struggling in.
Well, and with your evaluation plan, I mean, this, if you're going to do this, this is a good place to start with your evaluation plan as well. Because that's something with that increase in hours, that should be heavily documented in your evaluation plan.
Yeah.
Will you be looking at the evaluation plan again, because you have it in the recommendations? That would be what I would want to look at. I would be watching for attrition rate. If you have ELL learners, I'm just wondering, I've worked with a lot of those students. And I'm wondering if they might need some additional help with the Lippincott platform. It is complex, as you know. And I've had students struggle with that platform. And I know it's great remediation help for them, but they may need some guidance.
To shoot down what we're just saying, I think the other thing is, as you're going forward, if there's opportunities to reduce credit hours based upon the need to add in these areas, I can encourage you to look at that.
And when does this take effect?
Whenever we're approved to start our next cohort.
It just seems like a very heavy load with a lot of it being remediation versus new content. You know, I have a hard time with credit hours for remediation.
Well, it's all new because it's a brand new cohort. So this is all they will know.
Yes.
It's just the remediation is built in if we need it. We might get a new cohort that's really good in drug calculations, which doesn't happen that often in nursing, but you never know.
Yes.
But if needed, it's there, but the content is going to be taught to make the person safe, to make them confident. So everyone is going to get that. That's the key to wanting to know, to do more drug calculations, to work more on different aspects.
if these changes were not approved, how would you move forward?
We're still gonna use Lippincott. So we're still going to, we would just use the current, credit, put as much as we can into it. It might not be as much time in the classroom, but we will still be using our same new product, yes, ma'am.
And going into the clinical, the students are confident and being very comfortable with their drug calculation has always been one of the major concerns when it comes to safety. So bringing them to that point of enough, calculation, confident, being comfortable to deal with it practically, theoretically is the real goal, just for a better outcome and for the patient safety too. Yeah. Especially with calculation. Some people are not very good with math, so to really get them to that point is very important for safety.
I have another question. I'm looking at your calendar. Who's doing your live NCLEX review? Do you have,
It's through Lippincott.
Oh.
They'll bring in, as long as you have more than 30 students, they
Okay.
come on for 2 days at the end of the program.
I have mixed feelings, as an employer, I love the idea of the added support, and you're exactly right. Pharmacology and calculations, that's one of the most difficult areas for new grads, I think, as a college student, that feels really overwhelming, and particularly for maybe the stronger students who may not need the remediation. But I'm pretty conflicted. I could argue both sides of this.
yeah, and I think with an hour increase for mental health and leadership, I'm just not really clear on the necessity for that. It seems like an additional burden on students that are really, really busy. That means more time in class, probably more assignments. But I think the pharmacology is really sound.
And with your increase for IV therapy, does that go over what a normal IV therapy program would be, a freestanding IV therapy program? What's required for that?
It still meets all the requirements. It's just giving them more practice time, giving them more practice time so they feel more comfortable.
And that's one of the reasons we are moving it from module 4 to 2, so that it will give that span of time for practice and very comfortable by the time we get to the clinical setting.
Pharmacology was 2-hour increase, and the IV therapy was a 1 hour.
So that's, yeah. We do recommend just that and not that.
How would you feel about that?
Great. Increasing pharmacology and IV therapy only, and then
Right.
revisit the leadership and mental health. Those are the two most important,
Right.
because we really want the students not to struggle as much in those two.
I would think.
I would too. Yeah.
Patty, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion if there's.
I can. I move to approve the major curriculum change request from Mid-America College of Health Sciences PN program to increase the practical nursing program's credit hours from 43 to 46.
To include a review of the SEP, including this change when submitted from the recommendation of the site visit report, and only increasing the pharmacology and the IV therapy courses at this time.
Just IV therapy and pharmacology.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Michelle Terry. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate the
Thank
discussion.
you.
Okay, so we'll invite Flint Hills to come to the table. I think we're on page 47 of our packet. Morning.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, morning. Here with a major common change. We, our program in the past added a summer session, which included, nutrition and nursing 207, 208, which are assessment and development, which the latter two are outside of the core curriculum. When we had our site visit in the spring, one of the just recommendations were, or to look at those classes to see if they were necessary. When we did go back, all the objectives were being met in our core curriculum, in our clinical, especially in adult 1 and adult 2. And so really to be more consistent with other programs across Kansas. And again, we don't want to waste the time of our students if their objectives are already being met in their core curriculum. And then we're also requesting to move nutrition to a pre-rec.
And Julie, you might just mention about that those classes were only for part of the students
Yes,
because of when they're admitted. So
Right.
is the other reason we were looking.
yes, sorry, that's.
Just to let them know
Yeah.
the whole picture. So, and I just want to clarify too, to help in this, because Debbie and I did this visit as well, that the ones admitted in the fall completed everything in 2 semesters, with those admitted in the spring had 3.
Right, correct.
And that's where those 2 classes were. So that's why we asked them to look at that, because those that were admitted at a different time, they were just getting content in a little bit different place. So that's what they just wanted you to, for them to hear that whole picture.
Madam President, I move to approve the major curriculum change from Flint Hills Technical College PN program to remove nursing 207 assessment and clinical, and remove nursing 208 role development lecture.
You have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I think that we're at Wichita State University. Page 56.
Thank you.
I'm Wichita State today.
Moving chairs.
Multiple hats.
Musical chair day. One of the things that we've noticed with our program, we started the accelerated program at a time when the economy was pretty robust. And there was a lot of money from places like Spirit and Boeing, where people had been shifted out of positions and they were helping to pay for education to give their employees new pathways to careers. And we started our accelerated program, and it is a freestanding program with just a cost to it. We've noticed over the past few years that's dwindled. And at times we've not met the admission numbers to support the program. And so trying to be a sound business keeper, we needed to make some changes. One of the things that we thought about was, and talked about, was actually closing the accelerated program. However, that would shut down 30 available seats in nursing, which this is not the prime time to do that. We would, so instead we chose to ask for 20 additional seats in our traditional program. Right now we admit 60 a semester. We would like the ability to admit 80 per semester. So in the event that we don't have a full course or a full cohort in the accelerated program, we can offer that shift for those students to come into the traditional program and not lose those applicants. Our goal right now is to only use that if we have to shut down the accelerated program for lack of enrollment. Right now, when students enroll, on their application form, there is a place for them to mark if there's not a position in the accelerated program, would they accept a position in traditional? So we already know that that's something that most of them would do, and, or a high percentage of them always mark that. So we would just like to have that approval for those 20 extra seats to make that pivot if we needed to.
And if you had enough for your accelerated and you could fill that BSN, are you gonna have any trouble filling clinical spots?
With our 60 in the BSN and our 30 in traditional and accelerated.
And then the extra 20?
Well, the extra 20 would only exist if we didn't have those 30.
Okay,
So we already have clinical spots for 90. We already have instructors for 90 cohorts or 90 students in the cohorts. So all of those are, we have the clinical spaces and we have the faculty to cover all of it. It's just shifting them from an accelerated program to a traditional format. So 2 years instead of 13.
Madam President, I move to approve the major curriculum change request from Wichita State University to add an additional 20 seats in the BSN traditional program on the Wichita campus.
You said 20 students per semester. When I read this, I see 20 students a year.
The
So I
accelerated
just
program is
want it to be clear in the.
20 a year, so we would want 20 a year.
With that amendment to say to add an additional 20 seats per year.
Per year.
second?
Thanks, Patty. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll pull you back up to your other half. Johnson County Community College, we're on page 64.
Hi, good morning. So I'm bringing forth the major curriculum change as defined by KSBN. And what we are proposing is we currently have our transition course for those that are entering our LP and RN Bridge program. It's called Transitional Concepts for the P and RN Role. It's currently a 6-hour credit course, currently delivered 100% face-to-face. At that same time, they are concurrently enrolled in a 3-hour credit course for assessment and skills, which is a hybrid course model. So what we're proposing within that same summer term is to move the transitions course from 100% face-to-face also to a hybrid model, which would complement very nicely with the other 3-hour credit course that they're already using. We are not proposing to change anything related to course learning outcomes, number of hours, and would be very intentional as far as what is deemed as the online portion, which would really be the didactic portion, as well as some of the prep work related to the coordinated labs. Everything else would remain face-to-face in terms of all their clinical, both at hospital and simulation, all of their laboratory hands-on practice, as well as their testing. And the other part is with the online learning modules, incorporating a seminar type model so that we have an opportunity to do frequent check-ins with all the students to make sure that they're staying on task with everything that's being asked of them online. It's been a request that we've had from several of those students, Regine over. So a lot of that is that student centeredness that we're trying to look at. But also it's a smaller cohort, so it's a good model to utilize with that cohort, but also during that time, prepare them knowing that going into that second year of the program, it would then be 100% face-to-face commitment.
Motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the major curriculum change request from Johnson County Community College ADN LPN to RN Bridge Program to teach NURS 155 course transitional concepts for the PN to RN role in a hybrid format.
Motion. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go down to our initial applications for LMHT programs. This is exciting and yet difficult because I know the regulations are really hard at this point, so. We'll start with Wichita State Tech. I think on page 70 is the list of the regulations on the application process for the LMHT program. And then when you get to page 73, I think that's really where Wichita State Tech information starts.
Good morning. So we are requesting initial application for 20 seats for our LMHT program. The conversation for this really began at the height of COVID in March 2020, when ComCare reached out to our president, Dr. Sherry Utash, to say, do you have anyone available that can work at the entry level? So over the past 4 years, we have had numerous conversations of how we can help this. As you all are aware in nursing, the mental health crisis is not going away, and our current systems and resources are very taxed. As fast as we are trying to produce nurses, what we really need is an extension of that nurse at the bedside. And how best can we do that? We believe is by developing an LMHT. And so we are looking at targeting the entry level, so high school, but eventually also making this a pathway into our PN program down the line.
I do have a question. Maybe I'm just not reading this right. Do you offer credit by examination for any of your curriculum?
I believe, yes, we will. There is.
It's on around page 80-ish, where
Is it
the
79? Did I miss that?
Towards the bottom of it.
Yeah. next to the last paragraph.
Articulated credit or prior, or the CPL, credit for prior learning?
Credit by examination.
Okay, thank you.
And you're starting with 20, correct?
Yes.
Madam President, I move to approve the initial application from WSU Tech for a licensed mental health technician program.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Debbie will be that one. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I raised my hand.
Sorry, discussion.
There is discussion. So do we need to do a site visit beforehand for this since it's a new program? Before they admit?
That is usually how we, in the regulations, yeah, just to make sure everything's in place for what they're asking.
When you get ready to start, yeah.
Okay.
And then. Site visit to occur.
When do you plan for the first cohort?
If I'm following our president, we most likely would like to the next fall. Fall 2025.
So I did amend with the site visit to occur before admitting students fall 2025.
So now we have
Also,
an amended motion. To second.
I guess, yeah.
Any discussion? I've already had good catch. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that right now Kansas is the only place they can practice. They're not gonna be able to endorse into other states because they don't have that.
Correct, which is why eventually it will be a pathway into our PM program.
Great, I just wanted to make that clear.
We have a motion, a second, we've had several discussions.
Sorry.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you for doing this. I know this is a complicated process. The regulations are not easy to follow or real smooth with the current day. You know, they were written a long time ago, so there's work being done on that, but we applaud the work that you're doing and thank you for moving this forward. Okay, WSU.
Back to
you. Yeah, equal cheers. Okay.
looking at the mental health situation in Kansas especially, and the fact that we have a new, mental health campus coming to the Wichita area in South Wichita, which will host a 400-bed mental health hospital. There needs to be staff to take care of those patients that will be admitted there. So WSU along, the nursing department, along with the psychology and sociology department, looked at how we might be able to partner and help with the, providing care, assistance for those types of patients. The psychology department, as they're getting their degrees to practice, can't practice until they have their master's degrees. And so we've partnered with them to not build a program, but a curriculum where we look at the courses that they need to have to, according to the regulations, the clinicals that they need to have, and have just built that curriculum. This will allow them to continue to take their psychology classes, sociology classes, social work, or whatever they're working on. And take the few required nursing courses. They do have to be able to do basic nursing skills. So we designed a fundamentals of nursing for mental health caregivers, for them to take that course. If they have a CNA, we can waive that course for them, or a CMA. Otherwise, they'll need to do that fundamentals class. We will check them off and review skills for those tasks that they need to do. And then they can take the curriculum however they want. A lot of them will already have the psychology courses that are required, and so we'll count those. We will track them each semester, and as they complete the list, then we will give them a letter that they finished all the courses that will allow them to perform in this particular job role. It will give those psychology students some experience in mental health while they're working toward being able to counsel those patients, to give them some hands-on and some practical experience to take with them into that profession. We also feel it will set up a pathway for other professions that they want to go into. A lot of those psychology classes are required for other healthcare professions. Nursing requires some of those. And so there will be opportunities for them to take those credits that they've earned during this program and use them for degrees in other areas. And we don't have a cap for this because
those courses already, it's all online except the clinicals. And we've got the rotation site set up. There are more we'd like to explore. However, we've got what we needed to cover until we can see if we're going to move forward with this. And then we have other places that we'll be utilizing.
Well, again, I appreciate what you're doing, and I think both WSU and WSU Tech have addressed the concern with getting college credit for some of this work, which is, you know, in that career path and that entry level position, which really meets the direction of our legislators across the street that they've charged us with. So thank you for your work on this. I don't have any questions. I look to the board, but great work.
I think it's a great
This is
idea.
phenomenal.
Okay. Madam President, I move to approve the initial application for a licensed mental health technician program for Wichita State University. It's curriculum, it's already existing. Yes. Wichita State University.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions?
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, great job. Washburn Tech. A new ADN program.
So I believe this, as of last night, I got a message. I believe that Pamela is going to be on Zoom. Colton, if you could, Pam Masters, can you move her to? She didn't want to bring germs with her, so.
Should be coming over.
Okay, thank you.
So page 126 of your packet is where you're gonna want to be. There is the checklist for you on page 125.
There she.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to join by Zoom. I will try to get through this with my voice. So, we're proposing a 1+1 ADN program through Washburn Tech. And this is in regards to, in response to our students and the community asking us for more nurses. Our students have asked for an ADN program that they can bridge directly into for several years. And then we worked with Washburn University and we did a needs assessment and a market analysis. We also looked at the progression in nursing goals and the IOM response to increasing nursing education. And we felt like the with our current LPN program and Washburn University's RN to BSN program, if we could bridge that gap with an ADN program, then that would remove some barriers and make it easier for nurses to continue their education and increase their level of licensure. So we are proposing a 1+1 65 credit hour program. The core nursing is 24 hours and they would get 25 hours from their PN program, and then prerequisites would be 16 hours. We would like to start this in, well, prerequisites in the spring, but the core nursing program for admission, if possible, in the fall of 25.
Yes.
And Pam, you're not gonna have any problems with clinical sites? For the
So-
RN side?
Yeah, both of the hospitals in Topeka have written letters of recommendation and offered clinical space. We have other clinical partners that we are working with that we already do or are working on getting contracts with. And our plan is to look at all of our clinical sites and look at what is most appropriate for PN and most appropriate for ADN and kind of streamline that.
And how many seats are there?
We would like to do it the same as our PN program, with 30 accepted in the fall and 30 in the spring.
And you have faculty already ready for this?
I have budgeted positions that are approved and ready to go. I have a couple of my LPN instructors who have their master's degrees and would like to move into the ADN program. And so the goal is to hire 4 full-time faculty, probably 2 from our PN staff and 2 from the community.
And you're hiring a director for the ADN separate from the LPN?
No,
Or is
my
it-
I have responsibilities for allied health as well. So I would like to I have budgeted to hire a director of nursing that will work alongside me and just to manage the 2 nursing programs.
Madam President, I move to approve the initial application for an ADN program for Washburn University Institute of Technology with a site visit to occur prior to fall 2025.
Thanks, Amy. We have a motion.
Second.
Thanks, Ruth. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
Feel
you.
better.
Thank you.
Okay, our education annual report. We had it. 153.
I just wanted to mention that, the annual report that we do along with NCSBN that has all the core data and then our additional questions, because of the way that programs work, we've been doing this. This is our 3rd year. Our reports are due by June 30th. Then NCSBN does the data check. And by the time I get the data, it's around August 1st, sometimes a little later. So the analysis of that, the presentation to you all has been very, very hurried and hurried. So one of the things that we requested, and I think gotten permission to move that core data, and we also have some comparison data this year to other programs. So that's kind of exciting to move that to the December meeting. What I put together that's in your packet is kind of the numbers crunch that we usually do and report to you. So this is kind of the bare bones report, just in terms of those basic numbers. And I wanted you to have that, but to know that the full report that has more of the details like we've looked at before on the warning signs, kind of the things that we're looking at in terms of helping determine if programs may need more support, how they're doing. That would also move the approval, the annual approval of programs to December, if that's okay with you all. But if there's any And I'd like to move that. I'd actually like to ask you if that's okay to move that permanently, as long as we're doing it this way. I think it just allows more time to put that report together in a way that makes more sense to you and maybe not quite so cumbersome, because I think what I've had to put in before has been a lot. So with that request, just to let you know too, when we put together the numbers report, there's the admission graduation information. I think there's also some on I can't think the word, but completion maybe. Attrition. Yeah, and then what I did, I think I started this last year. I can't remember if this is the second or third time, but the last on page 164 and 165, it's really kind of taking the data and crunching it all together. And again, just the numbers, but it looks at the number that they're approved for. It looks what their admission rate is, how many they graduated this year. And remember, not all of that is one-to-one. Some of them one-year programs, but some of them are not. And then their pass rates for this past year. And the two pieces of data I did put out that are kind of additional is that percent of full-time faculty. That's one of the warning signs, that we look at. And then the number of program directors in the last 5 years. And those are a couple of critical factors that were found in the NCSBN report that became part of their program guideline recommendations or suggestion for boards to look at. So just so you know, those are the kind of the numbers crunched and kind of putting it all in one place. It may not give you the whole picture like the rest of having the rest of the end report would, but at least kind of put some of that data together. And I think in this past year, I've had requests for that, the number of seats that we have. And I think sometimes what's missing when they ask that question is, I think we have plenty of seats. What we're seeing is we're not filling all of those currently. And there are reasons for that. And that's what we're trying to show, is that we have a faculty issue, that we might have some student barriers in terms of getting them into nursing. So I think it also helps show in a smaller report too, that actual number that we do have seats. It's just maybe getting them filled. So maybe the answer isn't always a new program, although we're seeing some of that, and that's helpful. But I just thought it was, and it's just a perspective. And as we've been asked for those requests, I thought it would be good for you to have that information as well, because it might come up for you all as well. So that's what I have for now. We'll be able to present this in December. Great. And if there's any questions on that, just let me know.
I think that's just information. We have our regulations review process, so we're doing pretty well on this. We've done 14 of 25 so far. Thank you, Jill, for keeping track of that, pushing us a lot here.
Doesn't it seem like you've done more?
Our committee has a lot, it seems like.
Yeah, practice beats us by a couple, but otherwise.
We've got the most. I don't know if that's. Let's look at KAR 60-17-21. On page 167 is our format that we need to complete. Itself is on one side.
Maybe just a reminder that even though these regulations are under revision, this is for the purpose of keeping, making sure that this is what's going to keep.
Yeah, but that's the question being asked from our legislators across the street is this rule and regulation necessary? These questions are very much formatted from that team across the street. So it's not that we can't change it from there, but they are asking us to conduct an audit to make sure that we do not have unnecessary rules. So we have to answer the question, is this rule and regulation necessary? Just so you remember, we look at it here and fill it out, and then at our next meeting, we'll review it in the consent agenda and finalize fill out today. So this is with respect to APR and programs and where they can.
Right, Patty.
Yes, yes. To ensure the safety and compliance of the constituents of the state of Kansas, this regulation explains the limits of advanced nursing education as well as the access to APPs in Kansas.
You're so good at those.
You're welcome.
So
I ever get hit by beer talking.
We hope that doesn't happen.
This time it's a joint effort. We send them like do
Okay, so, we'll review it again next time. That's where we'll make our motion to approvals. Yeah, so we'll move on to 60 dash.
17. No.
So 60-17-102.
Which is
Yeah,
Backwards.
the advanced nursing education.
So these are all the things that are needed for initial approval.
How do you also write faster than the US?
So for question 1 and 2, yes and yes.
Yes.
And then that gives Patty time to write.
Yeah, agreed.
She's not helping today. She's just doing the yes.
Yes. The checkbox. On here, safety, compliance. And
Stacey, I apologize for how this is gonna work. Okay. Yes and yes. To ensure the safety and compliance of some safety and compliance with the constituents of the state of Kansas, this regulation assures the safety, compliance, and quality of the APP programs.
Agreed. So. And we've got KAR 60-17-103. Which is the reapproval. I almost think that same verbiage
Yes.
applies to this one as well.
Yes, for continuation of.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, she's writing. Okay, to ensure continuation of the safety and compliance of the constituents of the state of Kansas, this regulation assures safety, compliance, and quality of APP programs in Kansas.
Any concerns? Okay, so 60-17-104, and this is faculty and preceptor qualifications.
Hey. She's so bad.
Okay, go ahead.
I did.
Yeah, she's challenging. Chanel's got us.
They're
It's a good time. Look at how
They're all
all
very
very
similar.
similar.
Okay. To ensure the safety and compliance for the constituents of the state of Kansas, this regulation assures the quality of education and preceptor qualifications.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So our last one that we're gonna review is KAR 60-17-105. Is under revision, but we can certainly answer yes to the first two questions, and we can talk about it in a bit for sure.
Is the redress.
It is.
Regulation.
Yes. To ensure the safety and compliance for the constituents of the state of Kansas, this regulation assures the curriculum meets national standards for accreditation, scope of practice, and board certification of graduates.
Good morning.
Sorry. No more room. I need bigger.
Well, just think they only have 7 more and you have 2 more meetings, so we're doing well.
Okay. How are we doing? Would you like a break? There's just a few short agenda items left, but they may have some discussion room. So would you like a break or are you gonna?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back.
Yeah,
So. Okay, thank you very much. We will reconvene following our short break. I'd like to invite Fort Scott Community College to the table. Good morning.
My name is Sonia Gupnani and I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs. Our Director of Nursing, Dorcas Cotwitz, she broke her leg, so unfortunately she can't be here. So just wanted to give a quick update on how our program has been going since last visit. We moved the nursing program to our main campus, started the new cohort. Our classes started August 19th. And we had the permission to admit 20 students. We only admitted 12 for the first semester. Our second semester is 5, third is 10, and the fourth is 5 students. We had orientation the first week of classes for nursing students and our general orientation where they could benefit, providing student support services at the main campus. We also had Elsevier. Yes, we had a representative from Elsevier come and talk to our first semester students to get them oriented. We hired another instructor for our first semester students, which was good. We also hired an assistant for the sim lab, who is also an allied health instructor. So she's doing part-time allied health classes and part-time sim lab health. Our instructors are starting to run their sim labs, so which is good. We had 5 students who graduated in spring semester. 4 of them took the NCLEX and they all passed. 1 of them has not taken it, so we are just waiting, sitting on pins and needles and waiting for her to take the NCLEX and see how it goes. We also, last time we were here, I know there was a question about how we are preparing our instructors who are coming from the field to be successful in teaching. So we sent our instructor, the first semester instructor, and gave opportunity to other ones too, if they were willing to go and get training from the CTE. We usually get, because we are part of that group, and we get emails from them that if you have new instructors, you want to get them trained in terms of creating the curriculum, assessment and all that. So our first semester instructor was able to go. Our third semester instructor was interested, but she had other prior engagements, so she couldn't go, but we are planning on sending her again. We also started a teaching academy at our college to help any new instructors who are coming from, nursing fields or any other instructor, to provide them support throughout the whole year. So it's a 9-month academy. So we launched it at our in-service. We had first session, and every month they meet with that person who's qualified to run that academy and provide any kind of support. Well, if you guys have any questions,
So Dorcas is still very involved in the program, is that
Yes.
right? She just isn't here today. is
Yes,
that
yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes. She wanted to
Campus
come.
regularly and.
Yeah, no, she wanted to come. I had to tell her no. Because she has been hopping on her legs. So like, we want her to get better for the visit with this coming up. So, yeah.
And when is your visit?
It's September 23rd.
And
through
Hazen will be
26th.
there as well.
And yes.
And are you prepared for that?
Yes, we are preparing for that. I know Janelle had asked for some information, and I apologize because we didn't know for the KSBN stuff what we needed. So as soon as we got an email from Janelle, Dorcas and I've been talking to each other. I said, we need to get that information. I know she sent it to ASIN, but we need to provide all the stuff to KSBN. So she's working on it, and she sent an email last night to Janelle saying, oh, you guys will have all the information by tonight.
Okay. You have any big concerns for that visit?
I don't think so, because I think we have made very positive changes, so I'm hoping that's what ASIN will see. And we are open to feedback always, because we want to make our program better. That's why what we do, and we want to make sure we are here for our students, so.
Questions from the board? Do you have concerns on the KSBN side? Because ASIN does a separate audit than we do, so are you?
I am new in this position, so this is my first time going through this process. I don't know. My thing is what the expectations were and what was told to us. We've been working on that. So that's all I can do. And again, we are open to feedback. And if we see, if you guys see anything from your side, we are open to implementing those changes.
Thank you for the update. Anticipate follow-up in December from the site visit, the ASIN visit, and we'll see you in December.
Great, okay, great.
Okay, Janelle, you want to talk about LMHT draft regulation?
Yeah, I just give a quick update. The only thing that I've really looked at since we met last time, we've talked about it. We have not had a subcommittee meeting. There wasn't really a direction for that. So that's some of what we may want to ask you about is how you want us to proceed with that. But I did pull off I had done an NCSBN survey, and basically what that does is it puts a question out to all of the other education, anybody who's a member board with NCSBN. There are 55 of them. They don't always all answer, but I had 38 responses, but basically their response to the LMHT is nobody really has anything. There were 4 or 5 state boards that said that something like that, like a certification, exists with behavioral health board. Or a couple of them said that it resides with their state entity. So kind of like we do with KDADS and the CNA, CMA, they are responsible for that. It's a certification. So there are some things in place that there is kind of if you look out there, a behavioral health certification that some can use. And it's kind of what I've said to other folks when they've asked, can you work in mental health without an LMHT license? And I think the answer is yes, but a lot of that is then training that's done, by the individual facilities. But anyway, so I think the answer to that is there's really not anything like we have. We kind of knew that, but I just wanted to ascertain if there was anything else being done. And I think one of the things it did do was answer the question about, there was some discussion in the subcommittee about, is licensing what we need? Is a certification program enough? Are there others that might have something like that? But then it would have to rely on, we don't do certifications, so who would take that over? So I think there's still some questions out there, and I don't know who else we might ask that question for. We've just gotten a couple of applications for new programs with some different ideas about how to do it. So the other thing was, that didn't really come up is, but if the regulation changes, one of the things is even with a pathway, like at the college credit, but a pathway to PN, there's still a lot of hours involved that they're already getting. So, that's the information I have for you. It's not a lot, but if there's anything in particular you'd like me to pursue in terms of, any of the states that do have it under a behavioral health board and how they certify, I would be glad to do that. Just where do we go from here on that? Because we have some new programs starting, I don't know what you would like to do for next steps. Not a lot of information, but.
Well, and I think it might be helpful maybe to hear from the committee in South Central Kansas that's working to open the new hospital. They have a very large workforce that they are looking to onboard. And I think it goes, having that entry level position into behavioral health is important. There are so many safety factors and even the mental health of the providers, they're going into a work environment that takes a a high level of emotional intelligence, and yet you don't really need any type of training to actually get that position. So I think that's my concern with not offering an LMHT license, is that you're encouraging putting people in an environment that's very high risk, in my opinion, not only physically, but mentally for that workforce.
Okay.
And I applaud the two programs that we've seen. They're trudging through complicated regulations that are not sensible. They don't make sense, you know, they're difficult at best. They're old and they are outdated, and yet I think trying to support that workforce for this large mental health hospital that is getting ready to open in our state, not to mention the two that are already in existence that are struggling with workforce currently, so.
And the nature of the business for inpatient has changed so significantly. It is so acute now, it is not uncommon for psych nurses to do quite a bit of medical care, which means that the BHTs or the MHTs really need to have some kind, almost like a CNA. That's what I have found. Something similar. It is becoming more skilled. And you're right, it hasn't in most states, you know, my psych background, it is not really been regulated. The pay is low. Some states require a bachelor's degree in something as a minimum entry. That doesn't mean they don't also get on the job training, but they have to have that or they won't be hired. And the premise of that is then they will have had some education, maybe some exposure to a broader world view, because you can, as you know, get in power struggles pretty easily with some of the patients. And so it's kind of a way to at least weed out probably some people that wouldn't be suitable for coming in for that kind of an entry level position. But when the pay is so low, it is difficult to attract unless you've got university students that need some part-time work. And that's where a lot of these will be if there's a university in the area or a community college.
Well, we heard it referenced today, you know, folks that might be interested in psychology or it's an opportunity to get some exposure to the field, even if the desire isn't to be a hospital
Great, that's so great to do that.
employee, and you get exposed to that field, so. You know, Adrienne, what comes to mind for me is we don't hear a lot at National Council about any, you know, this side of the workforce, and it is a very different side of nursing, you know, and healthcare. So I guess I'd be interested to get some feedback from National Council on what they're seeing from other states as well. And
I know there's a lot of discussion right now, especially in the licensed, this is personnel area. We're doing some research in that area. But certainly, you know, maybe having somebody come do a presentation for the board might be. If you'd like that, I could probably do that.
I think we could get I'd like to hear if they have someone who could speak on it, and, you know, I mean, to me, it would be helpful for us at this point. I think the state has a very interesting situation going on with the regulations and where they're at, and yet we've got a new hospital opening up and schools trying to meet the needs of that hospital.
Does that hospital, do they have other psychiatric hospitals elsewhere?
It's a state facility, so it's in, you know, Osawatomie and Larner, and then the new, and I'm talking about, you know, I know enough to be dangerous, I really.
Well, I'm asking, I'm thinking if I could see like a current, since I've set up MHT training programs, if I could see a current curriculum and a way to do that. What I saw today was similar, because you do want, you know, quite a bit of that, but it's so practical as well. What I've typically seen is about 80 hours of training, like in the classroom, and then the rest is supervised, like preceptorship, which is really quite a bit, but it's done not all at one time. You've got it done over a period of time until you achieve that. that total.
So I think maybe that sounds more similar to what Osawatomie has offered in the past, and you know, as we did that last site visit, some of our challenge to that team was, you know, they did a great job, but those folks are going through and investing a lot of time and commitment into that program with no college credit to show for it. And so that then is not only can you not transition from state to state with a license, but now then you don't have any college credit. for
Well,
the
that's right.
investment
You
that
don't
you've
go beyond from there if you would like to do that.
Right.
It's always good to grow your own site.
Yeah, it's building a path.
Cool.
With the
But
college. credit.
essentially, it's just that on-the-job training.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
So I think what we're seeing today is
It's helpful, the college credit.
a step forward, but I think we're keeping up.
Especially if they want to be a social worker and do
Yes.
use of it as well.
But since we've done the task force work on some of the regulations and trying to fix that, we also ran into the, what are we really trying to do with it before we can do that? So, I mean, we still have the draft regs, but I think there's other things that have to come before that. Like, what are we really trying to do with it? I mean, what WSU is doing is great. And is that the path we want to take those drafts? Because then we can continue to work on the draft. So it goes down that path. But then there's other barriers we came up against as well. So.
Yes, I think be a nurse instead.
Yeah, I mean, and we want to give them a path. I mean, we give them a path in nursing and truthfully and license, we give them a path. So do we include a path in it, you know, because they're giving them the chance to go on to LPN if they want.
And it sounds like psychology too.
And psychology, yeah. But then again, we're still creating the deficit there. If they do move on, we're now missing licensed mental health techs. So we're creating our own deficit again.
That's true. I think creating the path, that's one of the goals that the legislature has asked of us, is to find entryways into healthcare that may or may not be nursing. You know, that could be psychology, that could be physician, that could be lots of different avenues. But I think it meets that goal, and I also think it prepares the workforce for that healthcare environment, which is a unique environment. So I do, you know, I appreciate the fact that there are not other states. Colorado had some type of LMHT, and what, I'm not sure that it was called that LMHT, and it's very different, I believe, than what ours is. But there are a few states out there that have unique programs, which is where I think it might be helpful to start a conversation with National Council. I think if we could take our regulations down that path of achieving the two goals of, you know, a pathway for entry into healthcare and then supporting the workforce in that environment. And maybe then invite National Council to come and speak on that. Could we make it broad enough that there would be opportunities for partnership with other states if that were of interest? I'm guessing it.
Well,
Or not unique.
I know the Alabama State Board of Nursing was doing somewhat of an interesting process with some of their unlicensed assistant personnel, creating a whole new category essentially. So there has been some discussion on the national level about some of this stuff. But off the top of my head, I'm wondering if somebody like Phil Dickinson, the CEO, potentially have him, because he does have that wide knowledge of NCLEX and that sort of thing. So potentially he would be great. And I know they are wanting to come meet boards, so, you know, I don't know if that's possible, but I can certainly ask them.
Worth the ask, so.
I'm wondering too, if there would, what the feasibility or the advisability of having an LMHT 1 and 2. So I know we did that in New Mexico with the community health worker, can start off with less hours of training, and then you can go up to a higher level. And that seems to work out well because you're building your workforce with that need, but not everyone has to have all of it. They may prefer to just stay with part of, like what I saw today or had read previously with the curriculum that's been proposed.
Well, I think as far as the task force, Patty, I think there's interest to move forward, knowing that there's goals to go that pathway and then also to enhance the workforce.
You mentioned you said something about a committee that's Southeast Kansas or that's working with the mental health facility. Is that a group we should be?
I do think there's a group, Monica Bernan, I don't know that she's the leader of that group, but she does a lot with organizations. Monica Bernan is in the Pittsburgh area. There's a Greenbush. Yes, thank you, Amy. She's connected with them. She's led that group, and like I say, I know there are several business owners that participate in that. I know Claudia Ferraro from Ascension Bay Christie's been a part of that. There's been Wesley representation on that group just because of the changing dynamic. They will admit patients from across the state. But Monica would be the contact person I can give you her supplement to. She might be able to come and offer. I honestly, Debbie probably has so much information that Monica might. Between Monica and Debbie, they could probably speak on it. Right. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm on the committee that is their behavioral excellence for Kansas. And it's involved with KDADS and some grant money that KDADS is providing to help train mental health practitioners, so support to nurse practitioners and nurses in mental health. Not so much the mental health or that level of technician or care provider. Although we've talked to them about this particular program. We meet monthly. And then I've met with the Tannehill brothers, who are One Rise, helping with the actual site construction, that kind of stuff with that campus, because it's the hospital plus clinics and intake services and other things. It's like a 17-acre campus.
So one of the things that we talked about on the task force was not an LMHT as much as do we do certification for LPNs and RNs? So they have that mental health certification if they wanted to go into it. So is that something that KDADS would fund money for?
I'm not sure. They funded so much to different areas. Nursing has so much we can spend how we want to at WSU. So we are trying to decide that. But especially our nurse practitioners that want to go into psych mental health need this support with preceptors and some of the areas we need to get them in.
Because I'm wondering with Ruth's statement about LMHTs 1 and 2, 1 could be a true LMHT, 2 could be a certification added onto an LPN license. I'm not getting.
That's an idea.
Then it floats both, and it keeps a steady stream.
That might allow for, it's one of the issues right now with the current LMHT regs is it requires so many hours, that huge number of hours, but that might be a nice avenue to reduce the number of hours. I really think for us, the next steps is going to be continuing this work, but maybe connecting with Debbie and Monica and getting some direction there. Adrian, NCSBN, Kansas Board of Regents also has student-specific scholarships where they will support education if there's a commitment to work in a psychiatric facility following graduation. So there's a lot of support out there. So it's just finding it and last I knew, Board of Regents did not exhaust their financial bucket. They were asking for students to apply, but it does take that commitment to be in a psychiatric facility, 2 years post-graduation.
And just so you know, we opened a new inpatient mental health facility in Southeast Kansas. The ribbon cutting was last week and I attended it. And they're going to not only do mental health, they're also going to do medical detox there, which is much needed in Southeast Kansas.
And who's operating that?
It's through Crawford County Mental Health,
Okay.
brand new facility,
Okay.
excellent. Don't quote me. I want to say 20, but, it was a quick tour. And I was not on their
Freestanding.
freestanding. It's on our mental health campus. They're gonna have inpatient and then transition them to outpatient, but they'll continue with the same services.
That's great. It might be interesting to have the program administrator come and, or so that, you know, I really think the South Central Kansas it's a large facility that's trying to address the needs throughout the entire state. However, it will not alleviate the entire burden. So some of these other regions, I think, certainly have input to.
And I would have questions if they're using the ASAM criteria, if they're doing ambulatory detox, or just really, there's a full range that could really benefit that community. So that would be good to talk about.
Yes, and their director and co-director are gonna be excellent. They were already in that community, just in other positions, and it was nice to see their faces are gonna be over there, so.
Well, good discussion. Thank you all. Any other questions? No. 2-to-1 simulation hours clinical.
Just a brief, I did a lot of looking. Like I said, I'm gonna go back to the surveys because there's so many boards and we get a lot of good information. I do attend the education calls. And many times we have discussions on there. I looked back, there's not a lot of good direct on the 2-to-1. I did find some good things on other factors that go into simulation, who accepts, some don't accept simulation as replacement for clinical care at all. Some only accept high fidelity simulation. So there's a variety of things out there because we're also seeing a lot with virtual reality. So there's a lot on that. I went back to the board profiles. Again, it just says more about what percentage of simulation you can use. So I did put out a very specific survey that just doesn't close for another week or so on that direct question of, does anybody do anything other than 1-to-1 replacement if used as replacement for direct clinical care? So I will get more follow-up on that. I was looking for any more information. There just isn't a lot. I think the studies that were brought forward were pretty much what's out there. There's a lot of regurgitation of that same. So I will continue to look for that, but also that survey just to see. And I've also asked the person who runs the education calls to see if there would be any interest in one of our calls in the next few months here. I don't know that the agendas are usually set for the year. Sometimes there are spaces where they have time available to see if there's anybody who's done really much work on it and see if they would be able to talk with all of the education folks about it and see where we can go from there. Any other suggestions for how to move forward with that or what information you want, I'd be glad to try and do. But that's what's out there right now.
Perfect education, 100% credit hour requirement.
Well, after all the uproar it caused, evidently that has been put on hold for now in terms of the required, being responsible for any required, because evidently there's been some legal, pushback to the Department of Education on this. And so they have not moved forward with any, the requirement was real quickly, the 100% just means in the past, the schools have been held to kind of 150% of the minimum requirement just to keep it doable for students, making sure those costs aren't rising too much, other kinds of things. But what this new thing did was say they were going to hold everybody to 100% of the requirements of the state. And unfortunately, Kansas has a 15-hour nursing credit hour requirement. It's a minimum requirement, and they were interpreting minimum very different than we were. So it was causing quite a concern about our PM programs, and it's only freestanding. So all of our bi-levels and any that are connected to through ADN are not affected, but still it affects enough of them that's a concern about the quality of what that education would look like if held to a 15 credit hour. If that's how they're going to interpret it. But evidently some legal things happened, and so they are not right now not moving forward with it, and so we're still just watching what happens with the legal part. So that's what we are.
APR and draft regulations.
That would be me. If you remember, you did some regulation changes to the APRN education regs. There were 9 of them. And these were needed because of our application with the U.S. Department of Education to be recognized as an agency that can accredit nursing programs. There's only like 4 or 5 boards of nursing that do this in the nation, and that's been the way for, I've been here 14 years, it's pretty well been that way. And I went in February in front of the U.S. Department of Education when they reviewed our application. And they basically put us on conditional approval with the understanding that these reg changes needed to be through, and I do a report in February to them, and then that would make everything okay. All right, I have literally been working on these 9 regulations since then. And just to review with you, the whole process that the state has for approval of regulation revision is, first of all, it goes through the Department of Administration. That's for grammar and format and stuff like that. If they stamp it as approved, then it goes to the Attorney General's office and they look for the legality. Do we have the statutory authority to do what we want to do? Have to have a stamp of approval from them. Then there's an economic impact statement that has to go to the Division of Budget. They have to approve that, stamp it, stamp those. And then at that point, we can set up a public hearing and have the 60-day comment period. Once it's published in the Kansas Register. And then after we do the public comment, we have the public hearing, and that's where people can still give more comments if they want to. And then I put all of those comments together and bring them back to you all, and then you make your final approval. Okay, so just be aware there's a lot involved in this other than just the Board of Nursing, and that right now is the one creating the problem, I think. The 9 of them were sent through at the same time because it truly makes sense to hold them together. 4 of them made it through fine, as far as through the Attorney General's office. 5 of them did not. However, the requests that the Attorney General's office requested that I made were what I would call very minor changes. Some of them were not evidently caught by the Department of Administration. So if that tells you how minute they probably were. So I made the changes on those 5. I sent them back through the Department of Administration. They got the approval from there. I sent them to the Attorney General's office, and they've been there since July. I have no idea how soon. But that's where they're at right now. So once I get approval on those 5 from the Attorney General's office, because I made all the changes that they requested, so hopefully they'll fly through. Then they'll go to the Division of Budget. Division Budget usually pushes them through pretty fast. And then they would be publishing them, the volume of them. It might take a couple of weeks to get them in the Kansas Register. If it's really short, it's usually a week, they can get it in there. But since there's so many of them, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then we would set up the 60-day comment period and then do the public hearing. and then bring it back. So if you're reading between the lines here, it's probably not going to be approved in December, which is what it would take for me to go back to the Department of Education in February with that report saying everything's fine, it's been through. I am hoping maybe what will happen, I have all the dates, I have everything. I did tell the US Department of Education some of this was truly out of our hands. And I think they understand, and I'm not sure they understand the whole process that there is in Kansas. I tried to explain it, but unless you endure it, I don't think you really understand it. So I guess what I'm telling you is I'm trying, but you will not see those in December. But I'm hoping if we get close enough that they could come back to you in March, maybe the US Department of Education would give us a break. If not, I would say we probably lose the ability to have that recognition. And I've tried, believe me, I've been pushing these things, but truly some of it is out of my hands.
Well, if we can see what happens, if we need to have a special board meeting, we could potentially do that in late January, early February.
Because
I think
there'll
we'll
be
try to do that.
changes that you've already looked at.
Right, but I think, you know, the only other thing I can think of is do we move forward with the 4 that have been through the Attorney General's office and try to show that we've, you know, that we've gotten, could we get approval on 4 of them and, you know, maybe not the other 5, and to show the board then that we've taken progress or taken action, and if we're continuing to take action, that there's a delay. So to me, those are the 2 options, are anticipate a special board meeting or try to move forward.
Yeah, and if you want me to move those forward, you likely could, it'd probably be in an on-site packet, but you would be able to see those comments because there's already one that is scheduled for a public hearing the middle of November, and that's the one about the refresher course when you decrease the number of hours. That public hearing is November 15th. So I am anticipating to have those comments to you in December to the boards. And then they can make the decision about the final approval. And then, you know, once the board approves it, there's just a couple of little bitty steps. And then get it published in the Kansas Register, which again is usually fairly fast if it's a short amount of regulations. And then it becomes effective 15 days after it's published in the Kansas Register. So yeah, that's very true. If you want me to take those forward, that shows, you know, what we're trying, we're making the best effort. We moved those through as fast as we could. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly which 4 those were. I can report back to the board tomorrow if you want me to. I can look at those.
Do we think if we're halfway through it or someone halfway through it, that they would maybe give us that extra month?
Well, I'll tell you, the whole thing with this is we do this approval, and Janelle's heard this. She's been through this with me, and she's heard this kind of tyrant a little bit. We do this every 3 years. They did not change their requirements from the last time we did this. We had the very same regs. We flew in with no problems, absolutely no problems. The only thing that appears to be different this time is there was a different person reviewing it. Because I brought up to them that there had been no changes from KSBN from when we were approved 3 years ago. So that was put on because I think that's only fair. Because if we knew 3 years ago there had been a problem, we would have taken care of it.
Right.
But we did not. And, you know, we started some of this and then COVID hit and that kind of shut down a lot of the regulation review process in Kansas because of everything. I don't know. It would be worth a try. You know, I'm very willing to try it. because I'm supposed to submit a follow-up report, which those of you in education know what that's like with your companies and stuff. I don't know if they will actually bring me back in front of them, but they did make it pretty clear to me, I would say, that the expectation would be that we have these done, although they did say that they were giving us a year because it's a long process. And when they said that, I'm thinking, you have no idea. But you guys just tell me what you want me to do.
We try.
I do too. I think we may even do both. Let's move the first 4 forward and see if we can't get those through. And then if let's push as hard as we can on the remaining 5. And we certainly could hold a special board meeting, could do virtual. We've had a lot of experience in that, and we could potentially see what we can do. That's all. And I think if we can show strong effort, hopefully they'll recognize it. Okay, thanks for your work on that, Carol. I know that's not. It's frustrating. Okay, agenda for December. We've got the education annual report, which we'll look forward to. Janelle's told us about that. We have the finalization. You have a little preliminary glimpse today. We'll hear from Fort Scott again.
And we should have the sub report that's off of the recommendations from America.
Actually, it depends on what you want, because I think the recommendation, was it for the end of the year, or was it, I think
It was for whatever your recommendation timeline was. If they were just gonna include what they had found out so far from their change into that evaluation plan. I think that's what you had said,
usually
right?
give them 6 months from the time of the approval.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be told.
It wouldn't reach on March.
March, okay.
March agenda.
And follow up on the simulation to the 1 hour.
Yes.
To know if there's information.
We put LMHT back on again after we talk to people, or maybe just have them as guests.
Yeah, if we could even get, and I think I'm open whether that's the full board. I would assume the full board would like to hear some of that, but particularly from National Council, I think we may have more specific questions. Debbie, Monica, the Southeast Kansas new inpatient facility, if there's an administrator there that would like to come.
So would that be a presentation at both meetings or a presentation to the board? Probably the board, unless it been.
I think the board for National Council, if they are available, and sometimes it takes more than just 3 months to get National Council here. It might take us, it could be March before they're available. So we'll work through their timeline. But I think I'm inferring, I'm not on the task force, but would you all like to hear from the team that's leading the hospital in South Central Kansas, and then maybe some
Absolutely, I think so.
some of the other smaller regional work that's happening as well?
One thing that I've been thinking while you guys have been talking, and I know Janelle and I have talked about it, is the LMHT licensure exam. Right now, that's a paper exam that we give. It was updated several years ago. We actually did it with a national testing company. They kind of helped us. And so we send all of the answer sheets to them, and they grade them and then let us know, what the score is and stuff like that. Right now, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but I believe an applicant pays $40 for that exam, but we pay more to the National Testing Institute to grade the exam and stuff like that. So I think there's probably 2 or 3 things to consider here. You may want to change that so that they have to at least cover the cost of the exam. I think it would be great if the exam could be a computerized exam, but I think that takes some work on our part to figure out how that can happen or anything. But that would take it out of our hands, because if you're talking a lot more people starting to do this, that's gonna be something else that Janelle's gonna have to do and get that all coordinated and everything like that. Where if it was a computerized exam, it would be much easier.
It would give them immediate turnaround as well.
Yeah,
Maybe
it would.
before the next meeting, could we ask for some investigation with maybe a couple of different options? And what would it take to get it computerized? And then also recommendation on the cost for taking the exam. We're not looking to make money off of it, but
Right.
if we probably do need to at least cover our expenses, we can have a budget. We have a large.
Okay.
Good discussion. Anything else? Okay, well, without further ado, I think that concludes our work of business, so we will adjourn September meeting of the Education Committee. Thank you.